our topic today is when symptoms are a sign that the body is actually healing, and therefore why we don't have to be afraid of having symptoms. My name is Kim Knight, also known as the Kiwi Health Detective, and I love to share cutting-edge new information of a new paradigm in healthcare that is already here on the planet, but not many people know about it. There is a huge amount of new information now, which I've been studying for some years now, and I'm really passionate about bringing this information to people because it changes lives and it supersedes the old paradigm, and this information has to come out. It is coming out, and in another, I don't know if it's going to be 5, 10, 20, 50, 100 years, this information will be the norm. And on the back of my business card, I have the following quote. It says, "All truth passes through 3 stages. First, it is ridiculed. Secondly, it is violently opposed. And thirdly, it is accepted as self-evident." Well, this sort of information I would have, and I did ridicule 25 years ago when I first started coming across it. And I don't know that I went through the violently opposing stage, but I'm now at the accepting it as self-evident. And my work is to help people see the truth of certain information about health which they're not currently seeing, because it's life-changing. It literally changes our life for the better. So today our agenda is why our symptoms are a sign that the body is self-healing. And so we're going to be looking at the old paradigm of what is happening when we have symptoms or pain or disease in the body, and then looking at the new paradigm of understanding what actually may be happening when symptoms are going on in the body, and how symptoms show the body is actually or may actually be in self-healing mode. And I'm also going to briefly touch on emotional conflict themes and the brain organ tissue emotional connection, and I'll share obviously more what that means later. And the overall purpose of this video is a fresh perspective, so that you have new information and you can look at things through new eyes. And I'd really love to ask that you share this information with your friends and family, that you share these Facebook Lives, you share these free weekly episodes of my Secrets to Health, and tell people and spread the word. That is what I would like to ask of you. And you can send them to my YouTube channel. And what I will be doing mostly with these episodes is that once they're recorded live, most, not necessarily all, but most of them will be uploaded to my YouTube channel, and then the audio will be uploaded to my iTunes show. And you can search the Kiwi Health Detective on iTunes to find that. And also, just to let you know that soon I'm going to be starting a monthly online workshop where we'll delve deeper into some of these topics that we talk about in these weekly webinars. And also soon a Secrets to Health monthly membership portal where we'll be looking more at the solutions to the problem, because mainly in these free weekly webinars I'm talking about what sets up the problem, because we need to understand that. It's absolutely fundamental to understand this information, but then we need to know, okay, what am I going to do about it? And that's what I go deeper into in my monthly online workshops and my monthly membership portal. So there's lots of information that you can find to move deeper and further into this topic. Now, before I go on, I need to say that I do not diagnose, heal, treat, cure any medical condition. And the information in these episodes is based mainly on my personal experience, and in fact quite highly on my personal experience of having healed myself from multiple chronic illnesses without medication or supplements, and also many, many years of clinical experience working with clients and seeing how this information plays out and is proven to be true again and again and again. but you are responsible for how you use the information that I'm sharing in this video series. And if necessary, please seek the appropriate medical help, because there are many avenues to healing and you have to find what is right for you. So very briefly, for people who may be watching this now or later who've never come across me, I was ill for many years with clinical depression and chronic fatigue syndrome and several other health conditions, and that left me unable to work for over 10 years, during which time I lost my house, my car, my career, everything. And I had to rebuild everything from scratch, and I had to find out what was really causing these symptoms. And I eventually traveled around the world looking for answers and finally found the answers, pieced everything together, everything fell into place. And now I help people to turn their life around and to really understand, in particular, especially chronic health conditions, which people who have really severe debilitating symptoms, and it just doesn't seem to be an answer. And the reason that there isn't an answer is not that there isn't an answer, it's because they're looking for the answer in the wrong place, and they're looking for the cause of the problem, usually at a physical level, and the problem is not being caused by something physical. And this is a big, big missing piece in our healthcare system, which has to change, and it's already starting to change through people like myself and my colleagues, but more of this information has to come to the fore. So we have what we could say is the old way, and we have what is the new way for our healthcare system. And as I've already shared, I'm very much into the new way. So let's look at the old paradigm of what happens when you have symptoms or illness or disease. And this was my paradigm 25 years ago. 25 years ago, if I became ill, if I think of the things that I went through, and these, I healed all of these by the way, but I had chronic candida, I had chronic urinary tract infections, I had appendicitis, I had hives, allergies, asthma, chronic back pain, clinical depression, obviously chronic fatigue syndrome. There's probably a few more that I can't think of off the top of my head, but I had quite a few different health conditions. And back then, I never thought to ask, why are they there? Why are these symptoms there? Why do I have this problem? The only thing that I knew to do was you just take yourself down to the doctor, and they either give you some medication or they tell you you need surgery. And those were really the two options, and I never gave it a second thought that there was any other way. And so I came to unconsciously think that there's no reason for symptoms. They're just there. There's no reason. And therefore, if we take it one step further, then in a way what we're saying is the body has made a mistake, that symptoms are a mistake, they shouldn't be there, and they're wrong. And all you have to do is get rid of them as soon as possible, as quickly as possible, and usually, that would be medication or surgery. And there really wasn't much else asked about or talked about. You just don't ask why, you just get rid of them. And often people use that phrase, I just want to get rid of my symptoms, but they're not actually asking themselves, is there a reason for them being there in the first place? Now, another thing that happens with this old paradigm, which is not good, is that we go into fear. So imagine somebody has just been diagnosed with cancer, and cancer is a huge issue in the world today, and I'm going to be sharing an example later on cancer. So imagine that somebody's been diagnosed with cancer because cancer seems to, for some reason, bring a huge amount of fear, more than, say, other health conditions. And what happens is then the mind and the emotions go into fear, which automatically puts the body into a state of stress, because our body can either be in stress or it can be relaxed. And interestingly enough, in order for our body to heal, it needs to be in a relaxed, healing state. And the interesting thing is, when our body is truly in this relaxed state, it automatically self-heals. But when we go into the stress state, then it stops the healing. So our body mind goes into fear, or this is the current old paradigm, is what happens is that when people don't know what's going on and there's a fear of dying, then the mind goes into fear, and it creates what we call an imagined reality or a story, and it's usually a negative story of the worst case scenario or the worst thing that's going to happen. And it's very scary that there's fear, there are the thoughts that go with fear, there are the emotions that go with fear, that puts the body into a state of stress, tension, contraction, and everything starts going in a negative spiral. And it's very, very sad that a lot of people are often told, well, you know, if you don't have this surgery or you don't have this medical treatment, then you're going to die, which then also creates more fear. It's really a fear spiral, and it's really not pleasant. And I know what it's like to be caught in a fear spiral. I've been caught in that spiral many times in my life, and I'm going to show you in a minute there is an alternative. But if we look at what fear is, a lot of what fear is about is missing information. There's some information that we haven't yet seen or understood, and so our mind and our brain tries to fill in this missing information, which is the normal job of the mind. That's what the brain does. It tries to fill in missing information. But unfortunately, because it doesn't have enough good information, it's filling in with a lot of negative information. And one of the acronyms for fear is false evidence appearing real, which is quite applicable to this sort of situation. So what happens is we have more fear, more stress, focusing on the problem rather than a solution, which actually, unfortunately, increases the problem. So the old paradigm, remember, is there are no reasons for symptoms. Symptoms are a mistake. You just maybe take medication or supplements, or you have surgery to get rid of symptoms, and you don't really ask why. So let's look at the new paradigm. The new paradigm is there is, or there may well be, a reason for symptoms, and that symptoms are not a mistake, and that we don't need to only resort to medication, supplements, or surgery. And actually, what we have to do is we heal the person, not the illness. The illness is the end result of the person being in a state of dis-ease, and that is what disease is. Disease is a state of dis-ease. And Harvard University have done studies showing that at least 80% of all illness starts with stress. It starts with ongoing stress. And that stress in itself is the result of ongoing life situations which are not being addressed, they're not being resolved. And usually these situations are stressful and emotionally stressful situations. Could even be physical as well, if there's, say, for example, physical abuse involved. But usually it's unresolved trauma, unresolved stress, unresolved emotional trauma that is really causing the problem. But the main thing is here is to understand that we have to heal the person, the whole person, the totality of their life, and that is what we heal. We don't heal illness. And also the new paradigm is that we do ask why. We do ask, why is the body sending symptoms? So the new paradigm is that symptoms have meaning and they have messages, and we have to learn to interpret those symptoms, which is why I call myself the Kiwi Health Detective, because that's what I've learned to do. I've learned to see the meaning and the messages behind symptoms and help people to do that. And we also now understand that the body is supremely intelligent, like unbelievably clever. And at a physiological level, and also at an emotional level, and a mental level, and a spiritual level, on every level, our body is constantly seeking homeostasis or balance for our organism. We need to have homeostasis in order to literally stay alive on the planet. And in the Eastern tradition, they call this a balance of yin and yang. If you have too much yin, it's not good. If you have too much yang, it's not good. And yin is stillness, yang is activity. We need a balance of yin and yang. And we need to understand what stress is, what relaxation is, and what healing is. So this is the new paradigm. And the main thing to point out here is that the body has not made a mistake. The body is far too intelligent to make mistakes. If we have symptoms, our body is trying to tell us something, and we have to work out, what is my body trying to tell me through this pain and discomfort and dis-ease? And when we do that and we rectify it, the body, which is a supreme self-healing mechanism, will heal itself, because it's designed to self-heal. It's absolutely designed to self-heal. And that's what I'll be showing you in a moment. So here we are. We have the natural healing cycle, and you may be familiar with this diagram and know it as the yin-yang symbol. And the yin-yang symbol is, half is usually shown as a black or a darker color, and half is shown as a white or a lighter color. Here we've just got red and blue. And actually, usually what you will see in the yin-yang symbol is that you will see a little dot of, say, blue in the red and a little dot of red in the blue. And that is to show that there is no absolute in the universe, and that when one thing reaches an extreme, it will turn back into the other. I haven't got that on this diagram. But I want to show you and explain through this natural healing cycle. We also could call this healing cycle the stress regeneration cycle. So there's what we call a stress phase after a stress trigger. And then once the stress is over, let's say, we have what we call a regeneration trigger. And then the body automatically goes into what we call the regeneration phase. And once it's been through both these phases, the yin and the yang, and they've balanced each other out, we come back out to health and we carry on in our life until this happens all over again. And this is continually happening to us. And in fact, it's happening on a daily basis without us even realizing it. But it's only when we get a chronic illness that we start to notice this, or maybe come across the need to understand this theory. As I said before, yang is active, it's activity, it's movement, and yin is stillness. And in our world, in our universe, this is a law. This is what we call one of the laws of health, the laws of life, the laws of the universe. And we can't break these laws, but the problem is most human beings are breaking the laws. So if I give an example of the yin and the yang, this is going on all the time with the seasons. We have 4 seasons. Sometimes people say 5 because we have late summer, but let's just say 4 seasons. And yang is summer. It's when people are out and about, the days are longer, and we're meant to be more active in summer. And then we have winter, when we're meant to be still. We're meant to be more still, and we're meant to do less. And if you look at nature, nature does this. And we are part of nature, but we forget we're part of nature as human beings. But nature doesn't forget. So if you look at a tree that sheds its leaves, in the summer, all the leaves are green, it's vibrant, all the sap is on the external part of the tree, and it's in, when it has flowers, it's in full bloom. But in winter, it sheds its leaves, and its energy and its sap literally goes inward to regenerate. And it needs to do this because if it didn't, it wouldn't survive. And then we have the 2 transitional seasons, which are autumn and spring. And spring is when it's starting to become more alive, and autumn is when it's moving into winter. Now this is a natural cycle, but the problem with human beings is that they have forgotten this natural cycle. And if you look at your life, would you say that you have, on an annual basis, do you adhere to this natural cycle, of being active in summer, but actually quite still in winter, and calming down in autumn and revving up in spring? Do you follow the seasons? Are you naturally in tune with the seasons? And even on a daily basis, where we still have this cycle of, midday is the summer, the morning is the spring, the afternoon is the autumn, and the nighttime is the winter. Do you have and follow this cycle on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, a monthly basis, an annual basis? And for sure, most people in the Western world are unaware and ignorant, which means they're ignoring the truth. They're unaware that actually this is the state of affairs, that, this is the way, this is how we should be living, and this is the natural way to live. We have forgotten what is natural, and what is natural has become unnatural, and what is unnatural has become natural. And this is a big creator of dis-ease, because we need homeostasis and balance. So what happens is, if we spend a lot of time in this stress phase, we are creating damage inside our body, because we're going against the laws of life and we're doing damage. And as far as the body is concerned, it has to, and this is built in, it's automatic, it has this automatic built-in system that I'm trying all the time to maintain this homeostasis and balance, because it's my job to keep you alive. And so we have to have the other side of the cycle, which is the repair phase. If we do damage, we have to repair. And we know this, if our car breaks down, we have to repair it. If our vacuum cleaner breaks down, we have to repair it. Otherwise, it doesn't work anymore. But for some reason, people are doing all this ongoing damage to their body, and they're simply not aware of it until they get to either a cancer or a chronic fatigue or a fibromyalgia or whatever it is. And then they're in the repair phase, and then they think, oh, my body's made a mistake. No. Your body's actually doing exactly what it needs to do. So when we've done the damage, we need to do the healing. That is what the body is trying to do. So let's look at some examples. Say, for example, we've been in the stress phase for quite a long time. And say, to give an even clearer example, say we're at work and the boss comes in one day and says, okay, this project that you had a month to do, you now only have a week to do it. Now that is what we call a stress trigger, because it puts the body and the natural mechanisms of the body that knows what is right for us, what will keep us in balance. If our body goes into stress in that moment, then that is our infinitely intelligent body telling us that is not right. That is going to put me under too much pressure internally. It's going to put me into stress. That's going to change all the physiological functioning of how I operate. My digestion's not going to work so well, and all the systems of the body are going to be affected. And the body is actually telling us that is not okay. But what happens in a situation like that? We just say, okay, well, I have to get on with it because my boss told me I have to do that job. So then we go through the next week, or say it's a 3-month project that should have been just, maybe it was going to be a 6-month project and it's been reduced to 3 months. So we spend 3 months in this stress phase, and we're working 12, 14 hours a day. We're not eating properly. We're worrying. We're working really hard. We're not resting enough. We're not sleeping well. There's a whole load of things that go on in this stress phase, in this damage phase. Usually when we're in this sort of phase as well, is that we're go, go, go. The adrenals are overworking. Because as soon as we go into stress, the adrenals start pumping out more adrenaline. So actually we can feel really hyped up and revved up, and we can actually feel really good during this phase. And we think, wow, I'm getting so much done, and we can be really sort of revved up. And this goes on, and we don't really think anything of it. And then the project finishes, and our body sighs a big sigh of relief. And that is what we call the regeneration trigger. And our body can internally goes, oh my God, I can relax. Thank goodness for that. That job is over. Now I don't have to be in the stress response all the time, and now I can repair. I can repair from all the damage that went on that my owner didn't even know was happening inside me. I can now start to repair this. And the body automatically goes into this regeneration phase, and you cannot avoid this phase, okay? Even if you know about all of this now, doesn't mean that your body is going to avoid this phase. It needs this phase, because the law of the universe and the law of health is the yin and yang. So then it goes into the repair phase, and this is when we get sick. So for example, say at this point, the person goes, okay, I'm going to take a holiday now. I deserve a holiday, so I'm going to go away for a week. And on the second day, they come down with a flu or a really bad cold, and they feel absolutely atrocious, or maybe they feel absolutely exhausted, and they get sick. And at this point, they then think there's something wrong, and they have to go and get some medication maybe. And by the way, maybe sometimes we do have to, but often we don't. So we get sick, and we think something's wrong because we don't realize, and we've just not been self-aware enough of what has been really going on in the total picture. So the body goes into repair, and often during the repair phase, not always by the way, but just in this example, in the repair phase, that is when we experience symptoms. So nothing is going wrong. The body is doing what it needs to do. And as long as we ride out that phase fully, which is very important, and we rest and repair, then we will come out the other side to health. And usually, you know, if we have a flu, we know that. We don't usually go to bed with a flu and think, I'm going to die, even though we may feel so sick at some points, you know, during that flu that we really feel like, oh my God, I am dying. But, you know, generally speaking, we don't feel that we're going to die when we have a flu. Not really, not like if you're, you know, given a diagnosis of cancer, which seems to have a much more scary, you know, feeling for the mind. So really, just to summarize, is that we have this trauma, stress, damage phase here, which has to be balanced out through the law of yin and yang with a repair phase. And, you know, this is the same for cancer. So I just want to share an example in a minute of cancer. But before I do that, I want to share very briefly what we call 4 emotional conflict themes. And what happens is when I'm changing track quite dramatically here for a moment, and there's a reason for that, so I can go more into the next example of the stress regeneration phase. So the amazing research that has been done through MRI scans has shown that certain areas of the brain light up when we have what we call an emotional conflict theme that is ongoing. This is not just like this happens once. These are sort of ongoing emotional conflict themes. So for example, if we have self-worth issues, these issues tend to light up a part of the brain called the cerebral medulla. And if we have social environment issues where we're not feeling safe in our environment, these issues tend to light up and show up in the cerebral cortex. And if we have survival issues over not being safe in our environment, these issues will show up in the brainstem. And if we have issues over integrity and not feeling protected, then these issues will light up the cerebellum. Now this is like a really, really surface level explanation of this. It's like, to learn this in full, it's a year's training. So I'm only giving like a really basic introduction to this. But just to show you, I had the slides the wrong way around there, that we have these 4 areas of the brain, these 4 main areas: the brainstem, the cerebellum, the cerebral medulla, and the cerebral cortex. And different emotional themes in our life that are stressful will affect a different part of the brain, and this will then have a knock-on effect into certain organs or tissues in the brain that feel best suited to deal with this emotional stress trauma. It's very interesting. So to sort of make it more simple, when we have an emotional trauma in our life, that emotional trauma will light up a certain area of our brain. It will literally, you know, this is being shown on MRI scans. It will affect a certain part of our brain, and then it will also affect a certain organ or part of a certain organ. And that organ or organ tissue will store the emotional conflict or the emotional trauma or energy of that stress. And that is just how the body works. And it will store it until we heal that trauma. So for example, say somebody, you know, has issues with safety, and they've never ever felt safe in their life, and they grew up in an environment where they were physically hit and they were emotionally put down and there was no emotional support, and they felt scared for their life on a daily basis. That will affect the brainstem as a part of, and maybe other parts too, but you know, definitely it's going to be connecting in with the brainstem, which is our sort of oldest part of our brain, our survival system, and that is directly connected on an organ tissue level with the digestive system, because the digestive system is a very basic or fundamental part of our body that deals with survival, because if we don't eat and we don't drink, we don't survive. So physiologically, our digestive system is about survival, but metaphysically, it will be affected if we have issues in our life about not feeling safe in our environment. Okay, so that's just to give a very brief example. So let's look at coming back to the stress regeneration cycle, let's look at the emotional conflict theme of prostate cancer. And the emotional conflict theme, or one of the emotional conflict themes of prostate cancer, is I'm not being a man. Okay, I'm not being man enough. I'm not allowed to be man enough. And the way this works in the body at a physiological level, the sort of the knock-on effect of this emotional stress trauma is that in the stress phase, when this person, for example, say it's a man who's being treated unfairly by his partner, he's allowing himself to be walked all over, he's not voicing himself, he's not standing up for himself, he's being, I can't remember what the expression is it browbeaten or whatever the expression is, but let's imagine that you have this sort of weak man who is allowing himself to be dominated by a very strong woman. That is very stressful for the body because it's not pleasant emotionally. It doesn't bring happiness. It brings a lot of frustration. It builds up a lot of what we call primary emotions in the body of anger, frustration, disappointment, even hurt. A lot of ongoing emotional feedback going on in the body, which puts the body into a state of dis-ease. And if this goes on significantly for too long, and oftenly that there may be other conflict shock moments that have happened in that person's life, usually set up in the early years where, for example, the mother, say for example, was, say this is boy, he grew up in a family with a mother or a father, it could be, but who was constantly putting them down, constantly telling them how stupid they were, constantly maybe hitting them, etc., etc. That wears away at the self-esteem. And later in life, then they attract themselves to a similar partner who also treats them the same way as the mother treated them, and this is just how it works. Then in this stress phase at some point, then the cells grow. And there's elevated cellular growth in a part of the gland, and often in medical terms, a cauliflower-shaped secretory prostate tumor grows. And this is all happening as a result of all the stress that is going on ongoingly in the body. So that is that is the stress phase. And say, for example, this is happening in later life when they're with this partner, and then at some point they say, you know what, I've had enough. I'm just not going to put up with this anymore, and I'm going to leave my partner. I'm going to leave my wife. I just had enough. And that then is the regeneration trigger, because finally the body mind recognizes, oh my goodness, they're not going to put up with this abuse anymore. They're going to look after me. They're going to make me a priority. And so I don't have to keep sending all this stress and this anger and this frustration over how I'm being treated. And the leaving of the relationship is the regeneration trigger. And at that point, that's when the body mind says, okay, all systems alert, now we can go into the healing phase. Finally, after 20, 30, 40 years, however many years it is, of this trauma and this emotional conflict going on and on, finally I can heal. I can heal myself emotionally, and I can heal myself physically. And at that point, then the cells start to reduce in this particular type of cancer, because, by the way, this cycle can be reversed. It can get very complex. I'm giving a very simple overview here. But in this phase, in this particular example, the cells start to reduce in the regeneration phase, and the cancer reduces and the cells start to disappear. But interestingly enough, during this phase, this healing phase, this is when people can get symptoms. So often, as I said, in this healing phase, we can have symptoms. And this is the time when people normally think something is wrong, things are getting worse, I have to go to the doctor. And as I said, I'm not saying don't go to the doctor, but what I am saying is we need to start understanding that when we have symptoms and pain, our body may actually be in the healing phase. And at this point, often in this stress phase here, when the tumor has been building, there is no diagnosis because there actually isn't any pain, and people don't even know that it's growing. And it's only during the regeneration phase, when the body goes into this self-healing mode, that the pain can come on. And so it's not often until the regeneration phase that the tumor is diagnosed because of the persistent pain. So here's another example also of this healing cycle. A very simple example is that you could go for a massage. So you've been very, very stressed, and you go for a massage. And that massage is the regeneration trigger for the body to go into the regeneration phase. And usually what happens then after this massage, or could be a healing session, is that often we can feel very tired. And that is the body going into the regeneration phase. And we just feel like we want to sleep. If you've ever had, gone to a yoga class and really relaxed, or a healing session or a massage, and you just want to go to sleep afterwards, that is your body telling you you need to sleep, because you've been so busy over here in this stress phase and you didn't even know that you were in the stress phase. And I'm now telling you, you need to rest and regenerate. But what usually happens? Often people they'll go, for example, for a massage in their lunch break, and they'll feel nice and relaxed, and then they'll finally be going into the parasympathetic nervous system response, and then they rush back to work, and they miss all the juicy healing that could have happened if they had actually taken the time to relax. So one of the things that I do is that if I ever go for some sort of a session, I never plan to go straight back to something afterwards. I just can't do it anymore. I need to fully take advantage of this regeneration phase. So just to finish, my website is kimknighthealth.com. And if you go to the website, then you can check for live events. Soon I'm going to be starting this month my monthly online mini workshops. There will be a small fee for these workshops. These are workshops where we really look at the solutions rather than, just what's caused the problem. And then, of course, I have anytime online programs. You can find all of that from the website. And as long as you're on the e-news list, then you will always get notification of any events that are coming up, including the free weekly webinars and the monthly workshops and whatever is coming up. If you're on the e-list, then you'll get the updated, most recent information. And I have a blog, and obviously for very few clients that I have time for them, because I'm really reducing number of people that I work for on a one-on-one basis, because I'm doing other things now, working more in the corporate arena, speaking at medical conferences. But for the few people that want to work with me, then you can work one-on-one with me. And you can always check out success stories on my website. And next time, the topic, unless things change, because things can always change last minute, but at the moment, the next planned topic is the 4 levels of communication and how your infinitely intelligent body speaks to you without words. And really, this is all about interpreting symptoms and why our body, ends up sending us symptoms. So thank you so much for joining me today. And as I said, there's plenty more information on YouTube, on my website. And please tell your friends to join us for these weekly webinars. I'm really keen to get this really life-transforming information out to the world. So thank you and goodbye.